when we do experience the non-physical, you mentioned that when we see guides, that they are not actually there. That we're picking up on their data stream, but they're not hanging around waiting for us. Could you talk a little bit about individuality and how we could tell the difference between an individual and aspects of an individual in the larger consciousness system?
Sure. Okay, when you say that nothing is actually there, that's based on a perception of what it means for something to be there. We tend to think that the larger reality is just like this physical reality, and we want it to be the same. We want it to have the same attributes. So when we say something's actually there and not actually there, we're trying to impose the context of an objective reality on a statistical probabilistic reality, and it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't work like that. The same works in the physical matter. In this physical reality, the same thing works. Things that you think are there are not really there. It's just data. It's a virtual reality. Okay, let's think a minute about World of Warcraft. That's one that most everybody's heard of. It's been around a long time. How can you tell the difference between an individual in World of Warcraft and what you're calling aspects of that World of Warcraft player? In other words, how do you know if you're a player in World of Warcraft, you're one of those critters, you're an elf or I don't know what all the players are called, but you're some sort of player in the World of Warcraft game. How can you tell if that's a real player or not? Well, it's real to you, right? You're getting that data stream. You're getting the data stream that defines that player and the context. And if you're getting that data stream, then that player appears real to you. Okay? So how do you tell the difference between an individual that's actually there and that you're just getting data? Well, there isn't any difference. That's what individuals that are really there are. They're just data. So you're just getting data not actually there. It's a confusion of concepts. I don't know whether I just said makes sense to anyone, but if you followed that, the confusion is in the concepts. We're applying a objective reality context or underlying assumption to what is really not objective at all, and that's why there's a confusion. So what you get when you run into a guide, you run into a guide that's, let's say, someone you talk to, someone that helps you out, helps out your consciousness evolution. You have these guides that you know and that you interact with. That guide is just a metaphor. That guide is your personal interface with the larger consciousness system. And you interpret that as a guide, because anything that communicates with you, you interpret as a being. Anything that you interpret as a being has a head, arms, legs, and looks sort of like you do. It's kind of humanoid because that's your concept of being. That's what your guide is. If you go out and see your Uncle Fred who died 10 years ago, what you're getting is data out of the database. Uncle Fred has gone on. Uncle Fred is in some other lifetime doing some other thing, some other place. Uncle Fred's not just going to hang around and talk to you for decades. That's obviously doesn't make sense. So you're talking to the data that was Uncle Fred. And you say, oh, well, that's not much. That's just the data. That's not the real Uncle Fred. Well, the data is the real Uncle Fred. That's all Uncle Fred ever was the data, the history, the quality. All those things are captured in the database. So it is actually your Uncle Fred, but not in the sense that you're thinking of it. No, it's not flesh and bone Uncle Fred. It's just data, but that's all that Uncle Fred ever was. Remember, this is a virtual reality game. That dark elf that's running around in the World of Warcraft game is not really there either. It's just data.